The one thing holding them back is the fear from making a bad decision and jumping into the wrong thing.
Analysis paralysis is basically like looking at the numbers, going over them over and over again, and just not having enough confidence.
It's like you're drinking out of a fire hose a lot of times. So you just continue to turn the wheels over and over at cycle and do something different with their life. So the time that you're spending, all the information you're hearing is, oh, that's too risky.
It's just you have to push through this one decision, and then you develop the tools and the muscle memory to make that over and over again.
Pick the one that fits your criteria 80% of the way and then move forward.
It was literally raining inside my house day one because I didn't fix these windows that needed to be fixed.
Welcome back to the Wealth Juice podcast. As always, it's your boys Ryan and Corey here with another episode for you. Today, we're going to talk about analysis paralysis. Over time, we've found that many people getting into real estate investing, entrepreneurship, business ownership, investing in general, the one thing holding them back is the fear from making a bad decision and jumping into the wrong thing or making a mistake, right? And so the fear of making the wrong choice often leads people to making no choices at all, which is the worst possible outcome. You just end up getting stuck. And for us, we look back and we're like, we don't want to, the biggest mistake or failure we could have is being the same person we were 10 years ago or 5 years ago, right? With no growth. We try to be 1% better every single day in everything that we do to grow our business, but also to grow personally. So we're going to talk through a couple different things today to help you understand analysis paralysis, but then also give you tactical strategies on how to overcome it. Things that we'll touch on include mindset shifts, the tactical strategies, as I mentioned, like the ABCs on how to overcome, and then the role that fear in your personal environment plays in your daily life, right? Like everything that you consume and that's around you, a lot of people push their fears onto you and then make you think that you're fearful of their fears. And it's this very intriguing conversation. It's a lot of psychological warfare that you play on a daily basis. But by the end of this video podcast, you guys should have an idea on how to overcome analysis paralysis and feel much better into making decision-making.
So one of the things that's funny about analysis paralysis, I like to equate it to like, have you ever like typed a word out that is a full word and then you stare at it long enough and it starts to be like, does that word looks so weird? Like it doesn't actually look like the word I typed out. It's coming off like it doesn't make sense or it's not spelled right. I don't know. Maybe it happens. I don't know if it happens to you. It happens to me all the time. Analysis paralysis is basically like looking at the numbers, going over them over and over again, and just not having enough confidence that you're just making up things that are like, well, wait, what if this happens? Or what if that happens? So it kind of equates to like looking at the numbers so finely, like over and over again, where it almost starts to look like what you have on paper doesn't actually make sense. And it's kind of just made up in your head. And I think it stems from the lack of confidence that you haven't put in enough repetition to believe yourself or believe the numbers, even if they do paint a very clear picture. So I wanted to put that out there. We're going to go through and kind of break down these walls for people who are stuck in this anxiety ridden, like, oh, the numbers don't actually make sense. Maybe they do make sense. You're just not confident enough in yourself to tell yourself that.
100%. It all goes back to the confidence in yourself. And without the repetition and training that muscle over and over, you'll never feel fully ready. And what we found a lot of times is you can train that muscle over and over and over, but then you still don't make the decision. And a lot of times it's because you don't have people in your corner that have done what you've done at a very high clip or high success level to give you the thumbs up to say, yes, you should make this decision. Yes, you should make this offer. Yes, you should dive in. This is the right choice for you. So the common pain points that we see in a lot of people are fear of failure. That's the number one. They worry about making the wrong choice for their overall life picture. They're overwhelmed with the information out there, right? There's so much data and it feels like you're drinking out of a fire hose a lot of times. So you just continue to turn the wheels over and over because the Airbnb sounds like the best strategy. Midterm rentals sounds like the best strategy. The long-term rentals sound like the best strategy. And then within that, should I get a duplex, a triplex, an apartment building, a single family? There's so much in there, right? And so it's that data overload that consumes people. And they just for years continue to analyze and look at different strategies and nothing happens. Another thing is perfectionism, right? I kind of fall into this trap a lot where, I think every decision has to be the best one and that it has to be the perfect outcome versus just making a decision, getting 70 to 85% of the way there and then just moving and going. The next one is fear of commitment, right? The idea that choosing one path closes off everything else, right? Like if I make a decision to buy a single family home, I'm a single family long-term investor for the rest of my life. I can never try anything else. And you box yourself in. And once again, you'll start getting understanding that this is all a battle between the ears. It's a mental game and you're making these false I guess, pictures of your life and make it painting these pictures of yourself where like you think it's the end all be all if you make this decision, where there's so many pivot points and there's life is long, you know, for most people. And I think if you make a decision now, the fear of you failing is holding you back, and it allows you to put these false pictures of your life into play when like half the time or 90% of the time they won't happen. Then there's a lack of a clear framework, right? You have no process for making decisions, which leads to endless research over and over. People fall on this, right? Like, okay, once I make this offer, then what's next? I don't know what to do. Like, am I going to be able to manage all the tenants? Am I going to be able to put the system into place and run this like a business? So you don't have a clear framework on what to do once you get to the next step. And I think it's that lack of a roadmap. And people get, once again, confused and they say, hey, I'll just keep analyzing deals. But the truth is, after you analyze deal after deal, unless you make an offer, you'll never be a real estate investor. And we're kind of focusing on real estate because that's our niche and that's really like how we've built our business. And so we find people get stuck in these instances. And our job here is to kind of help you guys get to the next step. And if you are an aspiring investor, you can be an investor. It doesn't take that much extra work. It's working between the ears and working on your mindset and just understanding when you're hitting analysis paralysis, you need to focus on some of these things and that we'll go through and strategies on how to overcome them. So the last thing I wanted to touch on is probably the most common thing we see is the fear from external influences, right? Being surrounded by people who discourage your action, even though you are capable of doing so, is one of the things that we see that holds the most people back. And for people listening, a good chunk of you are probably 9-to-5 workers where you make, you know, maybe a 6-figure salary, you make a good income, but the people that you are around every day, to your left and your right, if you look at your desk or your office, right, they are 9-to-5 workers too. 90% of them have not invested in real estate. They have not tried to break out of that cycle and do something different with their life. So the time that you're spending, all the information you're hearing is, oh, that's too risky. Or, oh, you know, Joe, my uncle Joe lost everything in real estate. Oh, 2008 was crazy. It's going to happen again. Things like this. And what they do is they just instill the fear because it's just what society deems as too risky, right? And something that not everybody can do, but we are living proof that you are able to do this and you can manage this while working your 9-to-5. So we will just kind of share our story as we go through this. A lot of you know our story, but main goal here is to disarm you with this information, to arm you with this information so you can disarm your fears is what I'm saying. You need to take back control of the action in your life to move to the next level. So we'll start here with the shifting of your mindset and just reframing decision making, right? It all comes down to making decisions. And then after you make a decision, taking action on that decision before you allow yourself to overthink.
So the comedian Bill Burr has a great, I don't know if you ever heard of this, but he has a great, like, he talks about fear and anxiety. And he's like, don't you think it's just better to exist thinking that everything's going to be fine until it's not fine? Like, you have the choice to think about, is it going to work out? And if you can choose whether it's going to or it's not going to, don't you think it's just better to choose, yeah, I think it's going to be fine until it's not. And then when it's not fine, then you deal with the problems that come there. And that's really what analysis paralysis is, dude. It's just the anxiety of things potentially not working out. But how do you build confidence? You build confidence from doing reps. And that's what we're going to talk about here. But I just think it's, you know, you think it's this big, vast, like, decision, when in reality there's people out there that are making decisions that are so much bigger than the one that you're making. It's just you have to push through this one decision, and then you develop the tools and the muscle memory to make that over and over again, and then you make new decisions. And that's really what it comes down to.
You have to fail forward, fail often, and just, when I say fail, like, if you're not winning, right, you're learning. And you're not, a failure doesn't mean that you are going to be done for life. Like, if you make this mistake, you're toast. You can never try again. And I think that's what they build this big thing in their head that, like, if I fail here, I'll never be able to do it again. I'll be in financial ruin. But the sun comes up the next day, right? And as long as you're on this earth, you have a decision to make, and you can put another plan into place, surround yourself with the right people, and get there. So my point here is to bring up, done is better than perfect. The best decision makers we found are the ones who are not always making the right call, but it's the ones that make the fastest decisions and adjust along the way. And they just get back up, they fail, they get back up, do it again, they pivot. And so we can give you a ton of different examples here on how to do this. But what we've seen a lot is, like, a lot of people will be stuck deciding between 2 rental properties, right? So what I say is, pick the one that fits your criteria 80% of the way, and then move forward. Like, experience in this game will refine your process, and it'll change things over time. Half the time you're going to make an offer on a property, it's not even going to get accepted. And you're going to have to make 10, 15, 20 offers. So my point here is to educate yourself till you get to the point where you feel you're 80%, 85% the way there, and then take the leap of faith. And we talk about this all the time. You'll hear our analogy. It's like you get in the plane, you jump out at 85% of the way there, and you build your parachute on the way down. Now, the parachute on the way down is the tools that you have along the way that you've learned to help guide you on your way, and you'll find your way. And then having a mentor and someone to coach you along the way, or people that have invested in real estate before, and surrounding yourself with the right community, that's something we'll touch on too. But that's what really carries you to the ground softly and allows you to pivot if you need to again. So I just want you to think about this. Like, every decision is a test, not a permanent choice. And it's not going to be this earth shattering thing that directly like alters your life in this crazy, intense way where you can never get back up if you fall.
If you knew that everything was going to work out, it wouldn't be a decision. So I just think that people need to recognize that. If people that take risks knew that there was no actual risk on the other side of this, then that's not even like how life operates. And I just give you an example of the first property, the first rental property, not the first house hack, but the first rental property that I bought. I bought it honestly not knowing if it was going to work out. Like I thought I was getting a little bit under market value. I tell the story sometimes. I didn't fix up the property at all. It was literally raining inside my house day one because I didn't fix these windows that needed to be fixed. My point is that if I had analysis paralysis and I never would have bought that property, I wouldn't have been able to get to the point where I was just dealing with the problems of the windows, and you just deal with it. And then you fix up the windows, and then you fix up the bathroom when there's a leak, and then you fix this thing up over here. And then your property makes $300 a month in cash flow. And then you sell it 3 years later for $100,000 profit. I say that because with analysis paralysis, letting that overcome and overtake my mind, body, spirit, I would have never made that move. And then our real estate journey would have never started. So I hope this is recognition of that. You can have analysis paralysis, but you have to draw the line somewhere. And that's where coaching and mentorship can help you get to a point where, hey, I'm drawing the line. Like, do I want to be like these other people that I'm seeing that are having success in investing? Well, they all started in analysis paralysis too, and then they just did it anyway. And that's really the moral of the story here.
100%. I think you'll realize as you get further in this game and you start taking action, what feels like a massive problem today is a minuscule problem years down the line, or even weeks down the line. So Corey mentioned, raining in his house and he didn't fix the windows, right? Okay. Lead to 2 years later, we have a property together and it burned to the ground. And we were like, oh my God, this is the worst case scenario that could happen to a real estate investor, right? And that's what you hear the war stories about. We got through it. We're
doing okay. We're doing okay over here. Yeah.
People have been through it before us. So what did we do? We went and surrounded ourselves with the people that experienced house fires. We asked around, has anyone experienced something like this? Chad, Coach Carson, who's another amazing real estate investor, he had a podcast episode that walked through a fire he had in the exact standard operating procedures he went through to mitigate the risk and fix the situation, both for himself and the tenant. And we used the exact step-by-step guideline to get through it ourselves. And you know what? We were fine. What seemed like the world was ending to us and our dreams and aspirations of being these big time real estate investors and becoming financially free and building generational wealth. We're like, is it all done here with this one property that burned down? No, we had another opportunity to go fix it. And the next week, the next month, the next year, whatever it was, go buy another property, right? Like, you just keep going. You have to keep swinging the bat, right? Just because you strike out doesn't mean you're not going to get another at bat, right? So I just think that you need to understand that some days you're going to hit a single, some days a double, some days a triple, some days you're going to knock it out of the park. And failure is imminent and inevitable in anything that you do. It's just how you let it affect you mentally. If you let it crumble you, you're never going to succeed. If you just accept the fact that it's going to happen and say, okay, I need to mitigate the risk. And the way to mitigate the risk is anytime I have an issue, I need to have a person that can help me solve this problem. And that's what we found. Like, real estate, business, entrepreneurship, this entire thing is a relationship-based game. And the reason why we never felt that we were overwhelmed by the information or felt like we were going to be taken out of the game is because we always had someone in our back pocket that we could call to say, hey, this is the issue that I'm experiencing. What have you done to overcome this? Have you ever experienced it? If not, do you have a connection for me? What does that do? It grows your network, it expands your horizons, and you talk to people that have been through it and you ask them what they've done. A lot of people fear that asking a question is a dumb question. Asking for help is not cool, or it makes you look weak. It's the dumbest thing I ever heard. And I think that people, when you become confident in yourself and your abilities and to go into a room to talk to people and share your story, like that's the number one thing. It's like instilling the confidence in yourself, keeping the promises you make to yourself on a daily basis, these little things that are, maybe it's waking up early, going to the gym, eating healthy, or analyzing a deal every single day, whatever that is based on your goals, right? When you do those things consistently over time, you're keeping the promises to yourself and you're giving yourself the confidence to be able to go into a room, and you're equipped for situations. You won't make the decision and move quickly if you have lack of confidence, meaning you haven't done the work when the lights are shut off or behind closed doors to get yourself through. Maybe you're only 30 or 40% of the way there, but you really need to be 80% of the way there. So how do you make up that gap of the next 40%, right? So I just want to touch on this. Like, don't let other people's fear affect you, because it's their fears, not yours. And how can you get yourself, you only know you, right? What information or person are you lacking in your network that will give you the confidence to get to the next level? And if you don't have that, you need to go seek that out. And that is exactly what we did. And it's with anything in life, right? It just goes back to when you were maybe starting t-ball, starting basketball or football. Like, you weren't great because you didn't know the game. Maybe you watched it on TV, but you had a coach to teach you the game, and they've had 30, 40 years in the industry or whatever the sport that you have been that you want to be proficient at, and you learn from them, right? And so now we're in the biggest game of our life, and I think people get scared. They're like, okay, I graduated high school or went to college, and I'm making some money, but now I have the 401k, I have the Roth IRA, I have the brokerage. Now I know real estate makes 90% of millionaires. I want to get in the game, but I just don't know how, and because there's so many things out there. It's taking it step by step. It's like, okay, the next logical step, baby step, would be to get a single family rental for a long-term buy and hold, to get you dip your toes in the game, right? Okay, who's done this successfully over time? Great. Go research that, all these people on Instagram, on podcasts, read the books, and then understand the basics, and then jump into, whether it's a program they have, hop on a call with them, or follow them and stay in their community on Instagram to soak up the information, or get into a local real estate meetup group where you're locally meeting and interacting with these people on a daily and weekly basis. You are going to become those other people because you're consuming all this information. You're around it every single day. You become part of your environment. And the people that you were around in your 9 to 5 that were projecting their fears on you, now you're around people that are projecting positivity and saying, dude, I did this. This is awesome. This is how I did it. And you're like, oh my God, if this person can do it, I can do it. We were around so many people like, that guy's not smarter than me. They just did it. They just sucked it up and they got punched in the face every day and they got back up. Right. And that's all you need to do. And, having an accountability partner also helps. And there's so many layers to this. Corey, I'll let you go. I know you have something to say here, but I just wanted to make a note here. Most of this is in between your ears, and it is other people's fears impacting your ability and making you feel crippled from taking the next step.
Yeah, just one of the things I wanted to talk about is just giving actual tactical decision-making strategies here. So let's talk about that. Let's do an exercise that's like, and I've done this before, the worst case scenario exercise. This is one of the things that I really like. Okay, let's say I buy this rental property. What's the worst that could happen? Well, my tenants stop paying. Okay, my tenants stop paying. Then what's the next thing that the worst that could happen there? Well, I can't afford the mortgage. Okay, then the next worst case scenario. Oh, I have to sell the property. Oh, okay. The next thing happens. I lose all my money. Okay, I'm living under a bridge. Like, you see how layered this can go. This can get to this point where you're creating these fantasies or anti-fantasies in your head that aren't like, what are the chances that if your tenants stop paying, that you're going to end up living under a bridge? I mean, truly. Like, you don't have friends that you can call. You don't have people that can lend you money. You don't have other resources. You don't have a good team. You don't have a property manager. You don't have other tenants that might want to live in your property. You can't fix up the like, work your way backwards from where is the actual worst case scenario. And oftentimes the worst case scenario is something that is very recoverable from. You can recover from it very simply. And Ryan and I have, I'm telling you this from experience. I don't know when you're listening to this video. As of February 2025, I had just over 80 units. We have 10 units under contract, so we have just over 80 units if this closes. And we've been through the exact things that I'm telling you. A property burned to the ground. We've had tenants that we've had to evict. We've had all of the worst case scenario problems that people are thinking in their head, and then we've made it through on the other side. The only way is through. So that hopefully can give you some analysis paralysis fuel to beat through that. Another thing is like set a decision deadline. Set a timeline where like, okay, I'm going to make a decision about this thing that I've been mulling over on this day. And then whatever the decision is, you just go with it. If it's no, it's no. Okay, I'm moving on to the next thing. You have to shrink the time frame in between how long it takes you to make decisions, and then you can move to the next task and the next thing. And the shorter that box can be of your decision making time frame, the quicker you can execute. And the quicker you can execute, the quicker you can move on to the next thing that brings you in the more dollars, the more success, the more relationships. And I'm telling you, this is how the game is played. And this will eliminate your analysis paralysis, because by doing the thing, you then get confidence that, oh, I already did that thing. I don't need to like worry about that decision anymore. I already made it. So those are two. And Rye, maybe you have a couple more, but that's basically the decision-making strategies, that can help you push through.
Yeah, I just have one more that I want to talk about, and it's the 5-5-5 rule. And you ask yourself, will this decision matter in 5 days? If I don't analyze a property today, will it matter in 5 days? Probably not. Will it matter in 5 months? A little bit more, probably. I'm not really taking any steps to becoming a real estate investor that I said I wanted to. Will it matter in 5 years? 100%. You're going to see people in the wealth gap widen if you do not start analyzing deals and putting your plan and your goals and your aspirations on paper and building yourself this systematized roadmap to get to where you want to go. In 5 years, you're going to look back and say, damn, this person did this and I didn't. They can go on the vacations. They can spend more time with their kids. They can chase whatever dream they have, right? Because they have more time freedom to go do what they want to do. But I'm still stuck and I have to start now. And so you're just pushing it and kicking the can down the road. And we see this happen time and time again. There's no perfect time to get into the game or to attack a goal, right? You have to do it tired. You have to do it hungry. You have to do it when it's freezing outside. You have to do it when you don't want to do it. And that's the hardest part for most people. And if you can realize this and understand this, we're breaking this down very granularly. This is how all of the best people in the world at what they do what they do. Look at Kobe, look at Steph Curry, look at LeBron, look at these guys. I'm talking about all like some of the big names in basketball, right? Like, you think these guys weren't tossing up 100 to 1,000 shots in the gym every single day when you don't know it? Like, we're at home watching Netflix or going to our 9-to-5s. Understandably, most people have to do these things, right? But like, these guys are traveling every single day to go across the country to play a basketball game. They have to go spend time with their families. And then they also have to still become better at what they do, not just through the games, but they have to grind in the gym and then put up more shots. They don't want to do that, but to become the best at what you do and to earn your keep and earn these big contracts, that's what you have to do. That's what you set yourself apart. You see the guys that last in the league for a year, or they get a 10-day contract. Then you see the guys that last for 10 plus years in league, right? What are they doing differently? Like, we can, look up Mamba mentality. You can go all the way into Kobe, and that dude was just a beast. And he held himself so accountable. So these small decisions, ask yourself, are they going to matter in 5 days, 5 months, 5 years, and help that make your decision-making process that much quicker and say, okay, yes, this is going to impact me. This is how I want to change my life. You could flip it on the other side of the coin, and right, it could be a basic decision, right? It's something that is not life-shattering, but maybe you're debating between two property managers. Go back to the thing again. In 5 days, is this going to matter? Probably not that much. In 5 months, will it matter a ton? I mean, maybe, but in 5 years, will this decision likely matter and shatter your world? Picking the best property manager? To be honest, probably not. It's not one of those things where it's like going to change your entire world. Maybe you make a couple extra bucks here, you lose a couple extra bucks here, but it's not going to, throw your business in the gutter. So you don't need to spend that much time on it. If you have one that hits 80% of the things that are there and they're a little bit more expensive than the person that hits 50% of the things, go with the 80%, spend the extra money and just move on. So big decisions can be affected by this, small decisions. And my point is, keep yourself privy to these questions, ask yourself them. It'll help you make a quicker decision. That way you can move on, say yes or no, and just act and go to the next thing. One of the last things I want to touch on here is the power of momentum and why action is key. So when you're going through and making decisions in your life, when I kind of touch back on this and like doing things the right way and holding your promises to yourself, it allows you to take down different tasks and check things off your checklist, right? And then you start building momentum in the snowball. You start feeling like things accumulating and going in the right direction because you are starting to build this traction. And when you feel that traction, you need to just kick it up a notch and push all the way into that and put all your time, energy, and effort into that momentum, because you never know when that momentum is going to come back. And think about how hard it was to start that momentum. So I just don't want you to let fear lose your grip of momentum and not making a decision at like hold you back from building that snowball and the eventually the big win, right? Because everything starts small. So just remember as you're going through this entire thing, that small step is going to lead to a medium step. It's going to move to a big step. And eventually your snowball is going to start rolling down the mountain, and it turns into this massive avalanche to take out the task at hand or the big goal. And it's going to allow you to look back and say, wow, that decision that I made and that fear that I had allowed me to get to the next level of my life because I didn't let it hold me back. I pushed and powered right through it. And that's, remember, the little problem that you had that felt so big in the time, that now that you have this big ball of momentum and looking back in your life, it's going to feel like the tiniest little blip on the radar because you have so many new problems and things to deal with. But they're higher dollar problems. And now you're making a lot more money. You have a lot more generational wealth. You have the freedoms to do what you want. And you're not going to worry about these problems as much because you are able to live the life that you always dreamed of because you just started and you took the action and you didn't let the fear of others and the fear of making a bad decision, fear of losing it all hold you back from never doing the thing that you've always wanted to do.
You've already done this in other areas of your life. I just want people that are listening to know that. I can give an example to Ryan. Before he was a father, he had fears about being a father. And then he became a father, and now he is a father, and he probably laughs at the fears that he was scared of being a father because he's doing it. So you're already doing this in other areas of your life. When you started your first day of college, you're like, am I going to fit in here? Like, what the hell is this? I don't know what I'm doing. And then you just do it, and then you're a junior all of a sudden, and you're like, well, I know how this works. Like, I know how to get good grades. I know how to meet people. I know how to do the thing. It's the same thing. Everyone is a rookie at something at some point in their life. So if you want to become proficient, the only way is through. The only answer is to do. The only answer is to take your chance and you push forward. But most importantly, surround yourself with the people who have done it a couple steps ahead of you. That is the key to overcoming analysis paralysis. The thing is that I want people to realize is you've done it in so many other aspects of your life. You just have to do it in the new area.
It's such a great thing to highlight, man. And it's every day of your life. And I think there's a bunch of quotes that I like here to wrap up. But one is, life begins outside of your comfort zone. Think about if you just never pushed through that fear of like, going to college and taking the leap and meeting new people and going to class and doing these things. You're like, no, it's just not for me. Like, I don't know if college is the exact example for this, but I remember I had the opportunity to speak on a stage. This was in college, and it was hosting, I believe it was like Greek Week or something big like this. And I was like, whoa, I know a lot of these people from like all the different events and things, but I have to go speak in front of thousands of people. I've never done that. How am I going to do that? But I just said, you know what? I'm never going to be able to do this again. I'm going to graduate, and this one little moment is never going to come back. So I just said, sure, I'll host it. It was the scariest thing in the entire world coming out of that curtain and seeing thousands of my like colleagues, friends, and people I didn't even know. It looked staring at me in like the dark abyss of what felt like this massive sea of people. And I'm like, you know what? There was nothing to do at that point besides just do and let it ride. And whatever happened. I prepared as much as I could. You know what? It was one of the coolest things that I ever got to do. And people came up to me after like, dude, you nailed that. That was so fun. And no one's going to tell you did really shitty at it. You know what I mean? So it was one of the things, like, even if I messed up, it gave me so much more confidence to go do it again and do other things and go talk to random walks of life. Now hosting the podcast, Corey and I think about when we first started this thing. It was Corey and I sitting in our rooms, basically on like a YouTube style, and just talking about what was going on in the world with COVID. And now we're talking to people we read the books about. And now we're partnering with people that we are up in the upper echelon of this real estate game. And for us, it started with taking the leap and just making a decision that we were going to try this thing and go all in. And we weren't going to let our fears and failures hold us back from just continuing to go. We have to remind ourselves all the time. Corey and I are like, dude, we just got to keep pushing through. You know what? We're not doing amazing today. We had a decent day, but I know we're going to be good in the long run because we're just not going to stop. It's the weirdest thing to say to yourself. You're like, today sucked, but we're just not going to stop. You got to start and try it again tomorrow. Okay. You have a better day. You have an amazing day down the line, right? But it goes in the cycle. It's not linear. So I'll say this, I'll end with this. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And that's by Zig Ziglar. And I think that's one of the things that Corey and I live it as one of our mantras, right? There's there's no way to do this thing aside to just do it. I think Nike has the best slogan. We've talked to so many high level people, and the one thing you just have to do is go take action and do it. You're not going to ever be 100% prepared for anything because life throws so many different wrenches at you. So stop overthinking, take action now, ride the momentum, and keep going. And if I can give you any parting words of advice, surround yourself with people that have done what you have wanted to do for your whole life, or you have a big goal in front of you and you want to take it down. Who's done that successfully? Go find those people, surround yourself with them, and you'll be uplifted to their level the more time you spend with them and the more value you provide them. So the faster you can make a decision, the faster you're going to win.